Greetings from Boston, everyone. I'm Yelena Surilov, the Associate Director of International Engagements at the Office of Alumni Relations. On behalf of Northeastern University and myself, I hope you and your family are staying safe and healthy during this turbulent time. Welcome to our second session on Raja Yoga Meditation, brought to us by Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual University. Each session works as a standalone experience or as a part of the whole series of 6 sessions, and you will explore the relationship with yourself, with others, and with our rapidly changing world. Before we proceed to our official program, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Please keep your microphone on mute and video off during the program. I would like to stress that the only way to ask your question is to type it in the Q&A section in the bottom of your screen. Please do not use the raise hand function, as we are monitoring only Q&A section. I also recommend that you put your view in Zoom on speaker view. There's a button on the right top corner of your screen to do this. Also, if it's not too much trouble for you, it will be very helpful to us to see your full names. To rename yourself, you can click on participants and hover the mouse over your name and click the more button. From there, you can click, rename, and update. Without further ado, I would like to turn the microphone to our Istanbul community leader, Hilal Orhan, graduated from the Momarkin School of Business in 2003 with an MBA degree. Hilal has been leading the Istanbul community since its official launch in 2009 and proved to be a true Northeastern supporter. Hilal is the one who wanted to share her Brahma Kumari's experience with our constituencies. Hilal, welcome.
A very warm welcome to everybody, not only as being an alumni, but also as being a student of Brahma Kumari's World Spiritual University. Tonight's topic reminds me of how I became a student at the Spiritual University. It was almost right after I graduated from Northeastern that I noticed I was living in a gap between who I was and what I wanted to be. So the desire to close this gap actually, sparkled something inside me for self-development. And when I decided to spend some time to clarify, to, let's say, investigate what was going on in order to close this gap, I actually opened up really good qualities that already reside within myself, deep within myself. So, as this was my journey, I hope that tonight's program also triggers something and brings up the qualities within you for a change. Before I turn the mic over to Philippa regarding to the change and change in ourselves and change around the world, and also transcend let's say, the barriers or the blockages, so to say, I would like to share a motto of the Spiritual University. And it says, when I change, my world changes. Okay, Philippa, over to you. And thank you everyone for joining tonight's program.
Thank you very much indeed, Hilal, from the Turkish chapter of the Northeastern University alumni, and of course to Yelena for being there at the office in Boston at the university. Thanks to both of you for the invitation to be with you for this second session in the series that we are calling Inner Change, Outer Transformation. So really a warm welcome to you from wherever it is in the world that you are joining us from today. I hope that this time will not only bring benefit to you, but also to all the people in your life as we consider some of the bigger questions that we're all facing today. As Yelena said, we're not using the chat box. We're simply using the Q&A, which you perhaps haven't used before, but you'll find it on the bar at the bottom of your screen. So any questions that you want to ask throughout the session today, write them there and they will come directly through to me and I'll be able to put them through to our speakers. So my name is Philippa Blackham and I'll be with you for each of our events. We've got 2 in December and 2 in January. And we are exploring the subject of Raja Yoga as a form of meditation practice and also as a way of helping us cope with the challenges that we're all going through. It's a very easy practice, one which anyone can do from any cultural or religious background or indeed any walk of life. Now, as Yelena has said, today's session is called Transcending the Challenges of a World in Transition. And I think each and every one of us throughout this year has been coping with a huge amount of change and the challenge that that has brought with it. For some people, it's been the challenge of ill health, maybe of coping with bereavement. For others, the challenges have been perhaps financial, coping with job loss and redundancy, or maybe even the collapse of a business, or just financial insecurity generally. And then again, for others, the challenges have been around feeling huge amounts of stress, anxiety, possibly even fear about the future. And of course, each of those emotions can manifest in our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So we really are being challenged from all directions. And sometimes the challenges are small and sometimes the challenges are huge. And so today we're here to really find ways of supporting you with whatever you're going through in your life at the moment. And it does feel, I don't know if you have this sense that we are going through something different. It feels like something is happening. But of course, none of us are sure what it is that we're moving towards, exactly what that change is going to look like in the future. Well, as has been mentioned, our first session, which was earlier in the month, just to catch you up on that if you didn't make that session, we were very much looking at the subject of turning within, of finding that still point within ourselves, the point of calmness that we can connect with, and a point which is very much a source of inner peace. And it's there for us all the time at our disposal. Whenever we want to, we can take a few minutes, step aside from whatever it is we're doing, and really feel that stillness, that inner peace that is there at the heart of every human being. Indeed, peace is our natural state of being. So we were exploring really that whole topic and the challenges that can sometimes come up when we begin to explore these spiritual matters. And we did have some homework from last week, which I hope you managed to do. Let me just remind you of what that was. We were looking to identify a quality within ourselves that we recognized, or perhaps a value or a shining principle that we held to be true in our lives. And we were just experimenting with this idea of, if we hold that thought in our mind, do we see more of it in the world around us? Do we notice it more in the people that we're interacting with? Do we bring it into our attention? Because very often things can be right under our nose, but unless we bring the thought of it into our conscious awareness, we can maybe just not see it altogether. So what happens when we bring into our conscious awareness a particular value, a particular quality? Is it actually the case that there are many examples of that in the world around us, and if we look for them, we will find them? Well, let's see if our two speakers today have managed to do their homework. They're both from the other side of the pond, as we say here in the UK. We have a television producer and an executive producer from CBC Radio Canada, which is the French-speaking service. He's also an award-winning documentary maker, and we're going to be hearing a little bit about the documentary that he's working on at the moment that sounds very interesting. He's Eric Larest from Montreal in Canada, and he's been practicing Raj Yoga for almost 40 years. Eric, thank you so much for joining us from Montreal today. Do you mind me referring to you as being on the other side of the pond? Does that work for you?
I'm very happy to be on the other side of the pond, because I always thought you were on the other side of the pond. So we're both on each side.
There's people on both sides of the pond. The pond makes it feel small and cozy and intimate, because really we're all together anyway. So we're just a pond apart. So joining us from New York State, we've got someone who's spent the past 40 years representing the Brahma Kumaris, which is the spiritual university that teaches Raj Yoga, representing them at the United Nations headquarters in New York, where they have a permanent office looking at ways to weave spiritual understanding into UN policy. So a very interesting field of work. Originally from Guyana, welcome as well to Gayatri Narayan. Gayatri, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Philippa. And I'm also, as you said, feeling very close, just being on the other side of the pond.
Fantastic. Well, we're feeling it already, which is great. Now, do either of you have a particular quality that you are noticing in yourselves or noticing in the world, or perhaps a quality that you are really wanting to see and looking to see evidence of it being there around you and in yourself? Maybe Eric, I could start with you.
Well, it's a quality that I've been really, I know it's a very universal one, a very kind of cliche one, maybe. It's about love. I would call it maybe authentic love, love which is the one that allows you to see the goodness in other people, not the love that I express necessarily with flowers, although I do like offering flowers to everyone. But it's the love that really sees the beauty in the other one. And I really find that it's a quality that has helped me a lot to remain filled, with an energy which is beautiful and real. Peace is good, but to me, peace requires an effort, whereas love is an abundance. So I've been really cultivating this, and I'm trying to see if by seeing the beauty in others, I can trigger the flame of love in their eyes.
And are you able to sort of send that love to yourself as well? Is it a two-way process?
Well, this is a very interesting topic about self-love. It will be a long story, but I don't think it's about, I have a difficulty thinking about self-love. I prefer to think about self-esteem. Mm-hmm. And so I like to see the values in me and to see the worthiness of the soul in a way, like the worth of the soul, and appreciate myself on that particular aspect. Regarding giving myself love, I'll keep that for my retirement, maybe when I have nothing else to do, when I'm less busy at work. But for now, I prefer to just give my love to others, nurture the quality of love, and anchor, maybe I would say it's anchored in a quality that I would call self-esteem.
Well, I mean, by beginning with the quality of love, it's very hard to top that, because I think love is the supreme. It tops everything, really, doesn't it? But Gayatri, you have a very interesting life. You deal with all sorts of different people, both on the grassroots and also in the corridors of power. Is there a quality that you're noticing, or is there a quality that you would like to be seeing more in the world as you go around in it?
I think that the quality I'd like to see more, and I suppose you would describe it as your shining principle rather than a value or a quality. And the one I have been holding very strongly as an experiment, and also as, I suppose, that last straw that we all seem to be holding on to when we look at the situations in the world, is this too shall pass. And I think when I hold this in my awareness, I find myself going into a state of awe. Now, this state of awe is a very interesting state for me to be in, because I feel it shifts me from what I'm saying, this too shall pass, and puts me in a state of awe. Oh my God, is this something that is happening to all of us as a collective humanity? And so it puts me in a positive state in which something there is present if I could only, go beyond what it is, this too. What is it? What is the this that will pass? And so that shift that occurs, which you maybe could call I transcend that situation, puts me in a state of a different understanding of what is going on in our world, because what it shifts in me is a removal from my limited self-interest self to looking at the world as a whole, and then maybe to see how is it that I can, in my awe, be generous about what it is I'd like to offer to my world. What is the generosity that exists in that awe? And so I feel that the focus of this too shall pass, combined with the awe, that feeling of awe that I tend to land in, creates a shift in my focus from what's in it for me to how can I be of service to others? And I think this is what I would like to see more in the world. I would like to see us moving from a self-interest and a self-centeredness into a more what can we do for our fellow human beings, because the crisis that we're going through is a collective one.
I think you probably got about 4 or 5 values or shining principles in there, but I'll let that pass because they're all absolutely beautiful. And I love this. It's almost like a mantra, really. This too shall pass. Because what that means is, no matter how dark or how desperate you may be feeling, if you can tell yourself that this too will pass, this moment will move into another moment, that can be such a reassuring thought to hold on to. It's similar to another one that I also like, which is, all shall be well and all manner of things shall be well. It's this sense of returning to order and returning to newness, which I like very much. You've raised other points there as well, this idea of service and service to humanity, which I really want to talk about in our session today. But before we get stuck in too much, we have a practice in Raja Yoga of beginning everything and ending everything with a few moments of silence. You could call it a centering exercise, in which we just put to one side all the things that we've been engaged with up until this point, all our to-do lists, turn off our phone, turn off all our devices, and just bring ourselves together in this present moment, all of us gathered here from different parts of the world. And I'd like to invite you, Eric, to just share with us what you do when you're just taking a few moments to center yourself. Because of course you spent 40 years working in a very busy newsroom with a lot of high energy moving around you. So you must have really perfected this art of taking a few moments, going within and just feeling that sense of calm and connection. So if you could share that with us for a few moments just to begin our session this evening, that would be great.
Sure. Actually, one of the things for me is what you see behind me. I don't know if you see it clearly there, but it's a lighthouse in the ocean, and the waves are extremely intense, but the lighthouse remain stable, of course, and that saves lives. But the light is one thing, but the foundation is the other thing. So my meditation to go quick into quietness is actually from my roots in Brittany, raised by the ocean. And when the ocean is like this, it's like that, but it's not going to be always like that. And I'm going to invite you to visualize the ocean in its very quiet moment, when, the waves at the end of the day are usually gentle, and just the sound of these little waves that comes one after the other. So here's an exercise. I invite all those who are watching now and wherever you are in the environment you're in, try to make yourself comfortable. If you are in the year 3000 listening to this video, you might be already floating in the new science fiction device, which I don't know about. But if you're in this present time, make yourself comfortable in your seat, on your couch, wherever you are. And I will really invite you to keep your eyes open So you stay very present in this moment. It's going to last just for 2 minutes. Keep your eyes open and start just to pay attention to your breathing, the physical breathing of the body. And go along by taking a deep breath just to create a circulation of air a little bit deeper. So you take a deep breath and you exhale. And at that time, we're going to do the same thing with our thoughts. And we're going to feel that thoughts can actually go a little bit slower. And we're going to think slowly. Like now I can start speaking slowly. Whatever thoughts you have, make them go slow, following the rhythm of your breathing. And as we breathe in, your thoughts are coming in. As I breathe out, exhaling, it's like my thoughts are leaving. And now visualize this beautiful beach, warm sand. And you visualize those waves of the ocean coming on the sand, the same way as you're breathing and your thoughts. And we're just aligning the breathing, the thinking, and the waves of the ocean. I think slowly. And this is as if my body, my mind, and nature are all synchronized. There is beauty and strength in the waves of the ocean. And that beauty and that strength is also in my mind and in my body. My inner nature is aligned with nature. And my body is also aligned with nature. So my mind thinks peacefully. My body breathes peacefully. And I'm peaceful. So now I should change the picture behind me and put a calm ocean with a nice beach and palm trees.
It's for us here in the UK, we're going into winter and it's dark at 4:30 in the afternoon and it's cold and it's wet and it's raining. So there was no hesitation there about going and standing on that beach and feeling that sense of calm and peace. So thank you very much, Eric, for leading us in that centering exercise. And I also really like that idea.
Everybody have removed their mask, right, before going on the beach?
Yes, definitely.
Remove the mask and there's no problem with distanciation.
No, beautiful. Thank you very much. That was really wonderful. Gayatri, we're talking today about transcending challenges. And last session, we were very much looking at going within and finding a source of stability and nourishment from within. And I'm wondering if this idea of turning within and this idea of transcending, are those two different ways of describing the same experience, or are they different things? I wonder if you could just share with us what you understand by this idea of transcending. What does that mean to you?
Transcending is actually a very fascinating word. And because of the theme of today, I actually found it even more fascinating. Because what I realize in deeply thinking about the word is the experiences that it offers. Transcendence is connected to experience. And I'd like to open, I love this quote by Viktor Frankl because I feel he described it in its most essential manner when he said, "I call to the Lord from my narrow prison, and he answered me in the freedom of space." And why I like that so much, because he's talking about two spaces. He's talking about the space that he feels the Lord, the source, the divine exists in. And then he's looking at the space of his immediate reality, which was what he was seeing as a prison. So transcendence means it's an inner experience to take one out of the limitations that we find ourselves in. And so it's going from one space to another space in order to bring that experience back to the space that he was calling a prison that he wants to be free of. So for me, transcendence, and I'll go back to this thing of awe, it is a feeling of awe. And in that moment of awe, there is a possibility. So I've transcended the prison, and in this moment of awe, there is a possibility. I feel that for transcendence, it is like looking up. You know, we have these huge trees in California, the eucalyptus trees, and they're really tall. So it's like looking up to the top of those trees. It's like looking up into the unlimited sky. It's like looking far out to the horizon. Transcendence for me is like finding that sweet vista that puts us in a domain of wonder and curiosity. So the inner and the outer, the inner awareness, but the outer reality is very connected to transcendence. An example that I'd like to share as well of showing how transcendence is so very beautiful because it changes the perspective. And this perspective comes from the way, well, it immediately impacts the way I would see something. And I am a great lover of how the astronauts saw planet Earth from the moon. And so I'd like to quote from a NASA astronaut, Sam Durrance, when he said that you've seen pictures and you've heard people talk about it, but nothing prepare you for what it actually looks like. The Earth is dramatically beautiful when you see it from the orbit, more beautiful than any picture you've ever seen. It's an emotional experience because you are removed from the Earth, but at the same time, you have this incredible connection to the Earth, like nothing I'd felt before. So ultimately, transcending gives us a radically different perspective from how we normally see things, including how we see our challenges. And it puts us into this state of awe in which what is inspired from that space is a possibility that gives us a profound experience of a need to accommodate the things that we are resisting. And the resistance is to the challenges we face. And so we are missing out on the transcendent feeling of there's this vastness of space in which there is so much possibility that I could accommodate a lot more to make a difference to my challenges. So that's how I see
really
transcendent, because it also, because it's an experience, and I'm putting it in the, it's not an awakening, it's an experience. Transcendence is an experience, and it can create, like it did for those astronauts, a life-lasting change in how people view themselves, in how they view their relationship with others, and how they view their relationship with the planet. And I think these are very important factors in facing our challenges, to transcend and look at the relationships we share with our fellow human beings, but also with our planet.
I think those first images of the Earth that were sent back from space, it was a life-changing moment for everyone who saw them, because suddenly we saw our Earth from a higher perspective, and it put so much into context, and things that on the Earth can feel massive and really significant, from that perspective, they kind of melt away like the morning mist. But I also like that quote that you shared about moving out of this state of being in a prison into a higher perspective. Because if we link that back to what we were talking about in our first session, where we were exploring this idea that this physical body that we inhabit is not who we are. This is the flesh and bones of our body, is just the vehicle that we use in order to have an experience in this physical dimension. But what we truly are is light and peaceful and pure light. That once we make that shift, that spiritual shift from the physical to the spiritual, then we are free to in a way move into a different perspective that isn't bound by the physical. But there is a little dilemma within that, because whilst transcending, we do still need to maintain a connection with our physical body and with our relationship with the physical world. So it's both connecting through the physical dimension, but at the same time learning to see things from a higher perspective. Is that a practice that you have had to really work on? Does it take time to be able to move between those two different ways of seeing things? How would you advise someone who's wanting to really be connected to both those realities and perspectives?
It is definitely a practice of Raj Yoga, which is the method I use for my self-development and growth. And the practice here is transcendence. For me, gives us a vastness of a space. And when I came and started practicing Raj Yoga, and I was introduced to the different spaces or the different spiritual domains, which I'm calling spaces, I was actually very fascinated by it. But at the same time, there was a grounding that had to happen for me. And so that quote by Einstein, which I'll paraphrase, is that the domain in which the solutions lie is not the same domain in which the problems were created. And so that was, for me, where transcendence fit, because I had to operate in two different domains, a spiritual domain and a physical domain. And so there is a vastness in a spiritual domain, which I call as a domain of light. And the domain, which we would also call a domain of consciousness, a domain of awareness. And I'm doing my actions in this physical domain, which is called this beautiful world that we have managed to mess up. And now we have to fix everything, or not maybe heal the world out of its what we have done to it. So for me, what I do in connecting these two domains, because it's not that I am living in a state of denial of what's occurring in the world, but I'm transcending the problems because I know the solutions they don't lie in the same domain that they were created in. And so what do I do then? What is my practice? When I look into the vastness, meditation calls on us to be reflective and contemplative people, human beings. And so we need to kind of go into a space that is silent, that is peaceful, that is still a little bit like what Eric did just now. He took us into that space. But when we retreat into that space, we find it's a vastness of light. It is like being in a self-transcendent space. And that self-transcendent space gives us the experience, first of all, which is very interesting, that I'm actually a soul. And a soul is a very tiny self. The soul isn't the soul isn't all pervading in the space, but the soul is a very tiny space. But it is being connected, and this is the word, connected to a greater whole. I'm able to see then from that perspective that I'm a whole being. I'm not a fragmented being. And what I'm discovering about myself is that there is a part of me that is very divine, very good, very beautiful. And there's a part of me that has been acquired. And when I'm in the consciousness of that part of me that's whole, that constitutes the well-being of the soul, then I'm not just seeing the fragmented parts of myself. I'm seeing myself as a whole being. And in that, from that transcendent space, I am then able to see others, and I'm able to see my world in this world of action with that vision. So to me, what transcendence does in that spiritual space of light, of consciousness, which we call as soul consciousness, it brings about a new way of seeing things through different lens. And that for me is closest to what the astronauts did. They transcended and went into a different space and looked back at Earth and saw it as a beautiful jewel. When we transcend and we go inside into our spiritual space, into that vastness of possibilities, spiritual possibilities, we see ourselves with different lens first, that all the solution lies in that part of us that we buried. And now we have to evolve that part of us. And then we have to use the treasures that lie within. And perhaps we have to learn, go through a different way of learning to be different people as we live in our world outside. So there is an inner transcendence as well as an outer transcendence. The astronauts went to the moon, that was an outer transcendence. A spiritual aspirant of self-realization would go inward and find that transcendence as well.
So it's a journey that is both inner and outer, taking us into ourselves and taking us beyond ourselves as well. And Gayatri, you've really given us a beautiful, tantalizing glimpse of this experience of expansiveness that is available to each and every one of us. But you've alluded there to the challenges that we're also engaging with on our in our lives, with everything that's been going on in the world at the moment. And Eric, if I can bring you in here, because you've been making a film that has been charting the experience of people in Canada as they have gone through this whole pandemic and the lockdown. And we really have journeyed from, initially there was a sense of optimism and hope that this could be our chance to bring about lasting change in the world that people were so desperate to see. I wonder if people are still feeling as optimistic and positive as they were, or whether some sort of fatigue is beginning to set in. What have you found as you've gone around doing the interviews for this documentary that you're making, in terms of where our headspace is at the moment with all of this that has been going on?
Well, before I go into these interviews, I think I should take the recording of what Gayatri just shared and bring that back to the people I interviewed and give them that as a beautiful solution for what they are trying to transcend, because not everybody is able to do that. I mean, I've never been out of space to see the Earth from over there. And internally, many are not able to do what Gayatri was describing. So now I have to transcend the state of awe that Gayatri just put me in, because whenever I listen to Gayatri, I always feel more intelligent, which is why I like to listen to her, because she makes things clear and I feel, oh, I get it. Now, if I'm getting it, it means I'm intelligent. So thank you, Gayatri, for making us feel brilliant. I really love the way you framed this aspect. And if I may just add one element, which is really my personal journey in the same process that Gayatri is talking about, And this will lead us to your question, Philippa. I think that I see Gayatri now moving into that transcending, I would say, mode, that transcending experience with grace and light. I'm a little bit more like a bull, you know, when I have come to confront an obstacle, I lose all my grace and all my deep spiritual wisdom. And I have to face the situation sometimes with a little bit more bull attitude. I don't know if it's the male attitude coming in. And to me, transcending, on top of what I think Gayatri just shared, there's also a dimension where I like to understand the connection with the self. Changing, and maybe that's the inner transcending that happens when I go back into my own awareness of who I am and where is the well of wealth that I can really start to go into to extract something that I need to go back to the world and transcend the intensity of what I'm being faced with. And to me, the transcending experience in this particular time, and I'm really talking about what we're going through now, because we all have been impacted. I mean, my work has changed dramatically over the last few months. I've been working, you know, interviewing people, meeting a lot of people in the last few months. I've been on the ground, so I haven't been just inside in my apartment, but I've been also on the field. And I find that also the changes around everything, you know, the friends I used to connect with every day are not there anymore. The solitude, the loneliness sometimes that can creep in, really forced me to go inside and find an energy, a power, or whatever you call it, light, wisdom, and to bring it out, to be able to, and that's where I see the bull a little bit more like there's strong current coming towards me, with changes, with challenges, with fear, with doubts, with questions of what will happen, how long will this continue, and how do I respond to it? And that's, for my understanding of transcending, is about not necessarily, yes, going above, that's definitely an aim, but also going through. And the transcending to me is also the ability to find my own inner strength that allow me to not be just overwhelmed with the situation, to remain in that situation, but to have the strength to go through in a way which is going to be meaningful. And when we interviewed, the documentary I'm working on at the moment is about what will the after look like compared to what we call now the before. And in French, we play with the words, you know, will after be like before? And we started to really listen to a lot of people who were initially, if you remember, it seems a long time ago, but in the month of March or April, a lot of people actually saw this pandemic or this lockdown as a great opportunity to change things, to think, to take time with the family. And yeah, there were a lot of people impacted very negatively right away, particularly those who were affected by COVID. But those who suddenly found themselves waiting, and in Canada, we had this incredible privilege that the government pulled out tens of millions to pay people to stay home, and they compensate industries, businesses, families, which I know is not the situation in many countries. But Canada was very fortunate to have this wealth coming out to really help people to go through. And the people we interviewed, some of us told us, I'm really shy. I'm almost ashamed of saying that I really enjoy this lockdown. And they knew it was politically not correct to say that. But most of them said, you know, I really enjoy it. I mean, when I'm with my kids, we do yoga exercise at 11 o'clock at night. We do all kinds of things we never did before. I'm taking piano lessons. And a lot of people found themselves in a space that was extremely actually positive. And that made them change their awareness, their thinking, their dreams. So they had the kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily transcending. I think they were stoned, you know, it was just like an experience of being a little bit intoxicated. It's like you stop drinking, I guess, for, you know, someone who drinks all the time. He gets into a strange stage when there's not the normal addiction. And so it's like people were rushing, and suddenly the calmness created a state of euphoria. And many had dreams. Many told us that they wanted to change their life. Many felt that this was a sign of time telling them this is the moment you have to change. And as you know, in many cities, everybody wanted to move out. So the market of houses outside of the big cities heated up very quickly. Everybody wants to buy themselves the little cabin in Canada. I don't know if it's in English. They say they want a log house, in Canada with snow and little birds and maple syrup. That was really on demand. And many people felt an urgency to do something, to change, to reorganize their lives. And of course, what we saw about 8-9 weeks into the lockdown and the pandemic, everybody we interviewed, and we had about 12 people plus a lot of surveys and different means, most people told us exactly the same thing. There was a big high and then suddenly a big crush, and they all felt panic attacks, anxiety, despair, like boredom. Okay, this is fun, yoga at 11 o'clock at night, but there's a limit to how much I can have yoga with my kids at 11 o'clock. Reading got boring, listening to this, Netflix got a little bit, suddenly there was a kind of change. And then they faced the reality differently from what we saw. There was a few wise people, philosophers, very wise business people who knew exactly the mantra that Gayatri was using. One told us, there were many people putting rainbows, everything will be okay, it will be fine. And he said, no, it will pass. It will not be fine, but it will pass. And so we saw a few people on a wise, I would say the wise edges of the pandemic, but most people went through really the same roller coaster. And after this euphoria, there was the reality that questioning, doubt, fears. And afterwards, what came up was more like, I'm missing my before. I want to go back to the way it was before. And this suddenly was conflicting with their dreams. I was dreaming of something different. And I see myself turning myself away from my dreams, trying to go back to my normal. And so suddenly their sense of emergency changed a little bit. And we saw an amazing lady. She's a great character, former businesswoman who completely changed her life and saw the pandemic as a way to accelerate her change in the life with her husband, convince her husband to give up everything. Let's go and buy a new land somewhere. We'll build Adam and Eve house with maple syrup, of course, somewhere in the woods, and we'll live very close to nature. And she was really, really serious about it. And she is volunteer in palliative care house in Montreal. And when we saw her a few months down the road, she was working, and she was one who told us, initially she was ashamed of saying, I'm shy, but I'm enjoying this pandemic. Now she was saying, I'm really ashamed of saying this, but you know what? I don't sense the emergency anymore. And I don't know about this project of moving away. We might just wait and go back to our house. So it was very interesting. And to me, it really reflects, the transcending, I don't think happened. It was an experience given, imposed, but there wasn't that kind of awakening in the consciousness that was strong enough to translate on long-term actions. And there are, of course, people who are making changes, but we're really not sure. And our editorial line in this documentary keep changing all the time. And in the beginning was, will there be an after like before? Then it became, well, after seems to be more and more like before. And now the editorial line is, well, why after cannot be different? Why can't we change? And I think the big question we'll have to answer as a society is, how is it that even with something big like this, how is it that it's not enough to really create the changes that our consciousness made us dream about? Many people saw a better world in the early days of the pandemic. And today it seems like we don't have the strength to make it happen. And when everybody was talking about relaunching the economy on a green mode, and they said, if you start to inject money to change the economy of the country, you have to do it right. And one of the first things, I don't know if I can say that, but one of the first things the Canadian government announced was helping the oil industry. And everybody thought, what? Why would you do this? And that was a big shock, and all the environmentalists that we interviewed, they were totally discouraged. Many told us, I've been protesting and advocating for decades. I just feel like giving up. If we don't make it right this time, when are we going to make it right? So I think the question really for us is, we can create sometimes amazing consciousness awareness, and then there is the disillusion. So why is there a disillusion? And even for me, I think on our spiritual journey, we have I remember myself in my 20s getting into this movement, Brahma Kumaris, and being completely wacko, really, in my head, thinking that, a better world was around the corner. I would be an angel, and, everything maybe with peace and love, the world would be healed. And then very quickly, there was a disillusion. And then the real work happened. And I'm wondering if we're going to see this happening in our society, where just the awareness wasn't enough to create the change we want to see in the world. And this is where I find that transcending has to come with a strength, which is not just the awareness, but which is the inner core energy of the soul, of the being, that we bring out and use it to do things in a very, very practical way. Sorry, I'm talking too long now.
No, you're obviously passionate about this subject, and you've been living it for all these months now. But I think for me, the essence of what you're saying is that there lives within each of us this real heartfelt desire to see something new. And we know that the world can't carry on as it is at the moment. We know we have to make change. But of course, as the Green Lobby have repeatedly told us, it's the changes that we need to make in our own personal lives, that when it comes to getting out of our comfort zone, that's where perhaps the blockages can come. But I wonder for you, Gayatri, how you see this whole subject of wanting change, but not necessarily being able to make the personal shifts that are necessary in order to embrace that change. What is the heart of that dichotomy of, yes, we want it to be different, but also we want it to stay the same? How do we shift out of that?
I think that's the problem. We want it to be different. We want the world to be different, but we want to stay the same. And I think change doesn't happen like that. It's got to be, I want my world to be different, so I'm going to make the changes so that my world could be different. And I feel that we have to go beyond depending on governments to change our world, or corporations to change the world, or however else we're looking at changing the world. But we have to say that if transcendence is about a change in consciousness, then I'm also understanding that this call is to individuals to make this shift in their consciousness. And this is why I said that the call of this time is a call for a change in consciousness. And that call is a call to we, the peoples of the world. It is not a call to the systems of the world, because it's collapsing, it's breaking, but it's a call to we, the peoples. And for me, that call is to recognize that what is happening on a daily basis is there is a conscious or unconscious dehumanizing of we the peoples that's going on. And so if I'm ill, this morning we were told we're living in a diseased world. And in this diseased world, I then said, everyone is diseased. So if I'm sick, and I'm waiting for the system to take me to the hospital or to create a modality for my healing, and I'm putting my life in the hands of the system, which many people do, and I'm not part of the healing of myself, then what is that saying to me? I'm not going to be healed because I'm a victim to the system. And then the healing wouldn't be taking place because I'm not an active participant in that healing. So I think that this call of transcendence is to give back people at an individual level a spiritual power that they have forgotten about, and to stand up and take a position on the basis of that recognition that within me there is a spiritual power that I can use to become a co-creator of a new world, and or of a new consciousness that will impact my world. And so I see it more of that. And I can just give one little experience. I'm not a journalist. I'm not working with, the masses, or I'm not working with people on a broad scale per se, but I'm working with individuals. And I'm seeing how transcendence is helping people working within a dysfunctional system. And in December, I met someone in Jerusalem where I was talking on compassion fatigue. And I was talking at a conference on psychiatrists, and she is a neuropsychiatrist, and she works here in New York. And she is working within a system that is kind of becoming a gridlock to what it is she wants to do. So what she wants to do is to help caregivers. She wants to help them become empowered so that they could help the people they're caring for, because the suicide rate in the caregivers is going up because they have this thing that's called compassion fatigue. And so the only way she could stay afloat in a system that is run by, the bottom line is the dollar, the bottom line is the profit. The only way she could stay afloat and be true to what it is she wants to bring to the people that she is in service to is to go back, is to transcend the challenges that the system is on a daily basis putting in front of her face. And to transcend it meant she has to go back and check in with a consciousness that is connected to a conscience. The will is one thing. The will to do something may be there, but if I don't check in with that moral compass on a daily basis to help me move, as Eric was saying, it's not just moving in, but it's moving through, to move through the gridlocks that the system is creating in front of me. If I don't pull on that inner strength to create an opening through which I could move through the gridlocks, then there's no other place on earth that you would go to for that strength. I don't see it.
But you're talking about pulling on that inner strength. And we've had a question from Kelly, who's asking, if someone is really new to this process, what would you recommend as a small shift or change that someone could make within their life or practice to really embark on this journey of transcending? And, you're saying about strength, but in your experience, where is that strength coming from? And what is the one thing that someone could do to tap into that?
Well, as I said in the beginning, when I was talking about transcendence, I think it requires us to become reflective people and contemplative people. So in other words, it requires us to have a practice of sorts, whether it is a mindfulness practice, whether it is a meditative practice, whether it is a practice of some sort that will allow us to go inward and to tap that inner strength that's lying latent in ourselves. And that inner strength requires a discipline of a practice. It just wouldn't happen at the level of changing a positive thought to a negative thought, or it won't happen at the level is that let me suppress all my frustrated feelings and anxiety, and let me just look for, for this positive outlook on life. But it would require me to understand myself at a deeper level and to move into what people are calling now the authentic self. When I can touch my authentic self, I can touch my inner power. That's where it lives. but I have to be in touch with that. And to be in touch with that would require me to be a reflective human being or a contemplative human being. Now, having said that, I still feel that if I'm not able to do that, life gives me opportunity in which it opens experiences in my relationship with other human beings and in my relationship with my world to experience things that are lying deep within me that I didn't even know I had. And so there may be moments in my life unexpectedly, and this is what I call, I've decided while I'm using this, this principle, this enlightened principle of this too shall pass, is to look for the moments in my life on a daily basis to see when I experience this sense of awe. Oh my gosh, look what just happened. How did it impact me? And then to be grateful for that, to be grateful for those little moments every day, and then to maybe journal on them. And I think this is also a way to open up ourselves to that innate spiritual power that's lying there to be used, and to create
so
a
your
shift,
answer,
not only in our awareness, but also in our attitudes. And if there is a shift that occurs in the attitude, it is only then that it will flow through behaviors and flow through perceptions of things that's happening. So it's not such a difficult thing to do, but it's a recognition to have. And if I can only recognize something, then it would kind of inspire me to explore it a little bit further.
so
If I
your
can add something,
advice, yeah, go on,
Philippa,
Eric. Yeah.
just on that, because I think it's very interesting, and I know, we're thinking that we want to make this discussion as so useful so that people can leave with something practical. And to be very honest with you, I mean, I've been passionate about spirituality for years, but the bottom line for me was, can I get out of my own negativity, which causes me sorrow? And ultimately, it's a selfish process, because unless I can free myself from what really bothers me, it's very difficult to be functional. So when we say, what can I do now practically to start that transcending thing? I mean, Gayatri and I have been doing this for decades, but there are certain things that for me were very, very interesting in creating the process of change. And for example, it was when I was very busy in the newsroom and I was stressed, honestly. I was apparently I looked like a very peaceful yogi, but deep within, there was a bit of stress, I have to admit. And so I keep trying to connect internally and calm down and quiet down. And I did the process, and I was very happy that it was working. My office looked a little bit like what you see behind me in the middle of a newsroom. So people were thinking, how do you keep that little space so peaceful and quiet? And everybody will ask me, do you have time? And I would say, well, if they ask me, do you have a minute? I would say, I have 30 seconds. It means hurry up, I don't have time. And then I got to a session at the retreat center we have in New York State. And someone said, when you have thought about something you don't like, you're making that thing stronger and it will come back more to you. And it really hit me, like I must have heard that a million times, but that day it really hit me. And I said, every time I say, I don't have time, I'm recreating that situation even more. So what do I do? So I started as a joke, to do the opposite. And when people will ask me, do you have a minute? I would say, I have all the time in the world. And of course, nobody believed me, and I didn't believe myself either. But I realized that it did change completely my experience of time. And we're talking about transcending. And that was my first real life experience of suddenly feeling that time has a little wheel that I can turn higher, slower, or faster. And I realized, oh, nobody told me there was a button I can use to change the speed of time. I just been a victim of time. And suddenly I started to turn it down and say, I have all the time in the world. And changing my thoughts, I realized that I could do more. There was more time, but I had to keep that happening. And the second moment that really was a transcending moment for me was one day I was doing the dishes and I broke something and I said, oh, I hate doing dishes. And I stopped myself and I said, what did you just say, Eric? And I said, I hate doing dishes. And then he said, the more you think like that, the more you're going to hate doing dishes. So I said, okay, I'll do the same thing. So next day, I love doing dishes. And I know it's called, I don't know, self, hypnosis. So it's maybe something like that, but it still comes from a spiritual perspective. When I understand the process, what I'm doing, I'm not doing blindly. I'm generating the process of going beyond, of transcending this reality, which is just simple thing like doing dishes. So I changed my thought. I love doing dishes. I love doing dishes. And today, honestly, it's a game. I don't mind. I can do dishes all night long. Doesn't matter. So my point will be to go along with what Sister Gayatri was saying is, small little thing. And that's what I think the person we're asking, when to start the process for me is to experiment, not with a big reality that we can't grasp at once, but to just try one little thing and play with the power that we have over the reality. Recently, just a few days ago, I did a mistake in a way in something. I canceled something which I shouldn't have canceled. And I started to have a little bit of, not panic attack, but a little moment of being unstable. And I quickly went back to this reality saying, okay, what do I have to, where is the little thought I need to go beyond that reality that makes me stress? Where is that thought that will give me the strength to transcend this reality so I can go through that reality, holding on to my thought like the lighthouse, strong enough? And my thought was simply exactly that one, that it will be all right. It will be okay. Everything will be okay. And I know it's simple, but believe me, it was a very real situation where it was not going to be okay. But I kept telling myself, no, Eric, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. I didn't want a more complicated thought. And my my feeling changed. Stress level went down, worries, and the perspective of the future changed. And suddenly from churning about, oh, what a mistake I've done, and this is not going to work, and this one will call, and this one will not be happy, and I'll be, I was projecting a future based on my fear and my anxiety, changing that with a simple thought, everything will be okay, everything will be okay. Of course, it's nurtured in a long-term practice of solitude and meditation and everything, but that thought became powerful. I'm still holding on to it. I haven't the proof yet, but I'll call you back when everything is okay.
Yeah, you do that. I mean, it's a lovely example of, whatever we're thinking, that's what we're giving energy to, and that's what we're going to experience, and that's what's going to grow. Someone said, what's in the way is the way. So don't push it to one side, but embrace it, look at why it's there in your life, make a friend with it, and, you can then move beyond and through it. So two very sort of practical things that both Gayatri and Eric have given us. Gayatri's advice to create time to sit with yourself and to connect with that inner power that is definitely there. And Eric, which is to not push away the things that you're resisting, but embrace them and befriend them. But there's another form of transcendence, which you touched on at the beginning, Gayatri, which was transcending our own sort of selfish, personal needs, desires, wants, in service to others. And I heard a very lovely thing this week, which was that, many people are feeling the stress and anxiety, and that is producing hormones that are associated with fight and flight, and they're physicalizing that stress in their body. And a very easy way of removing that sense of fear and anxiety is to create the hormones that are generated when we perform an act of kindness. Because kindness makes us feel good. It opens our heart. It connects us to another human being. And it literally releases endorphins that make us feel better, that counteract the other endorphins or hormones that have been created from the stress, anxiety. And I was looking at the book that you wrote, that you co-authored, Gayatri, this afternoon, Something Beyond Greatness. And it touches into this whole idea of transcending our ego self and our need to feel secure just for our own benefit, to looking to the needs of others. And I wonder if there's a clue in this as well for us in this whole idea of transcendence. If I can just read a little extract from it. The great ones that we studied consistently acted beyond self-interest and comfort to benefit a larger whole. They gave up their lives, sometimes literally, and put themselves in service of others. These acts of love set them apart from all the rest of humanity. But at this time, the world needs collective greatness, not just individual greatness. It is not necessary for everyone to act in this transcendent way, but it does seem necessary for a critical mass to have this kind of will, this kind of dedication to something higher than our own desires, if we are to harness our collective greatness. And it feels like humanity is at this threshold where we need to now really step up and see our connection to the greater whole, to see that we are a part of the whole, that you affect one thing over here and it will have an effect on something over here, that we are all connected, and that by somehow transcending our selfish needs and seeing the greater good of the whole, maybe that is the step that we need to be taking in order to move closer to the changes that we're wanting to see. What would you say to that, Gayatri?
I would say brilliant. It was a brilliant part of the book that you chose to quote from. But I would like to talk about it, respond to you in relation to the book being focused on thoughts of two very important people in that process of something beyond greatness. And one was a man of science, Umberto Maturana, who actually researched on the biology of love. And the other was on Daddy Yankee, who was the woman of God. And I want to mention her because for me, she sometimes in our lives on this path of transcendence, we need to see people who have actually mastered this art of transcendence. And she was one such person who actually mastered the art of transcendence. She lived to be 104 years, and she actually passed this year in March. What I liked about her form of transcendence was that she did what was called the nearest, I suppose you would say only God can do it, but she came the nearest to what I have seen in terms of altruism. And she did what was called altruistic service to humanity. Now, her transcendence was that when she came into contact with another human being, she would see the best in that human being. She would transcend all the weaknesses. She wouldn't move through our weaknesses to see our best, but somehow she had a vision of the person in front of her, and that vision was seeing the best in that person. But what was also very beautiful about it, she sustained that vision of that person throughout the relationship with the person. So for me, transcendence is, okay, I may see the weaknesses, I may know that they exist, but what I'm seeing is the authenticity of the person, what the person is capable of, that potential in the person that maybe the person isn't even aware of. And so I'm holding that. And so that then distinguishes someone beyond greatness to someone who just wants to be great. And I think that if the purpose of our spiritual lives, or if the purpose of the raising of our consciousness in order to transcend the challenges that we are facing in life is one to make ourselves great, then we've got it all wrong. We have to transcend these things with a purpose and a meaning. And Daddy Yankee showed us that the purpose of our lives in this quest for a transformation of consciousness is to be connected to the whole, It's to be connected to humanity as a family. It's to be connected to God as the one source, or the parent of the whole of humanity. And she never stopped reminding us of this. And in so doing, you're not becoming a master in and of yourself, but you are actually creating a community of people whose lights of greatness are being shined together. And so this when we're moving into a new world, or when we're moving into a new consciousness from which a new world will manifest, it is about a collective consciousness of everyone being children of God, of everyone having a right to those spiritual things. Just as how we have rights to human rights, we have rights to spiritual rights, and everyone is entitled to those rights. And your greatness is to shine the light on the light of other people and their greatness. And so you're creating what is called a community of greatness. And, you know, she always said, only God could do this, you know, a human being won't do it, because a human being will always have maybe elements of self-interest, but the element of that self-centeredness and that self-interest is going to stand in the way of your own greatness. And so
I think I think the coronavirus has very much nudged us in that direction, because we have had to look to the good of the whole, and this whole intention behind wearing a mask is for the protection of other people. And the whole way in which the pandemic has affected globally has made us realize that what I do is connecting people in the whole world. And this sense that you're touching on of stepping beyond my own limited self-interests to seeing that, you know, we are a global community. You know, there's no point just making sure I'm okay, because, you know, ultimately we're all on the same planet, and we have to together lift humanity up through unity, through cooperation, and through seeing not just my own personal needs, but the needs of the whole. I wonder, Eric, if you could just, in a way, give us your understanding of this word transition and what it is that you feel we are transitioning towards, because it's good to have a goal for this process that we're in, to really in our own minds be clear what it is we're moving towards. What is this transition from and to for you?
Well, I don't know what the world is going to transition into. Honestly, I think I'm like many people watching this whole thing and, you know, keeping good hopes and good wishes and holding on to my dreams. I don't know what really will happen, of course. I will come back actually to answer your question. I'll come back to the initial first question you asked me about the quality I nurture in myself and I would like to see in the world. And you know, the dark side of looking at the future is seeing the potential of how a lot of people at the moment are still holding on to negative values and reinforcing those negative values. I mean, I'm a journalist, you know, by training and studying, so I like to keep a cold mind and look at things, analyze, and in journalism, we're taught, get out of the way. It's not your point of view, but it's like observe, try to understand what you're seeing, and don't interpret all the time what you're seeing. Just bring back what you're seeing and tell the story. And if I look at what I see in the world, I'm subscribed to a lot of news channel and news feeds, but also I have my own, I have one thing in my internet, the positive news. And I subscribe to as many, there's positive.news, even CNN has a very interesting feed for positive. And it's not like looking at the world with pink glasses. It's just paying attention to the beautiful things that are happening at the moment. And I really, really find unfortunate that main media, as we call them, don't give more space and don't give more meaningful importance to these elements. They treat them usually at the end of the news. Oh, by the way, a little feel-good story. when actually they are quite very, very important. What's happening in the world on the ground by people who are doing the good things and the right things is quite powerful. But if I look at the black side of the world, it's scary, really, really, it is very, very scary. And, you have a pandemic and quickly you see people taking advantage of the pandemic to just cheat, to just corrupt the whole thing, people will, lack trust in vaccine because you see a war between big international companies and you start to wonder, are they really trying to treat the problem, or are they trying to make money? I know people will be very skeptical. So what I'm trying to say is that the wave of negativity is gigantic. Are we going to stop it by transcending? I don't know. I'm a little yogi trying to figure out, which stripe of my shirt is blue and which one is white, really. So I'm trying to figure out the world. Where my hope lies at the moment, to be honest with you, is about my ability to show what a loving being is all about. It's my latest discovery. I've done 30 years of meditation. I heard about love one another. I heard that. Jesus told us when I was in church many times, you don't love the neighbor. He didn't say which neighbor to love. So I was always a bit confused if it's the one on the left or the one on the right. But going back to that experience I had recently was to change the way, to come back to what Gertrude was sharing. I started practicing what she described about Daddy Yankee. And again, I come back to I love doing dishes and I have plenty of time in the world. I started to look at people at work, in my family, around me. And I started to say, Eric, try something, try to think differently. People I didn't like, I started to think, what's their quality? Just practice that quality. Every time I would see someone, I would say hello, hello. And internally, a meditation commentary starts. Oh, you are a courageous one. Your courage inspires other people. Your courage will make a difference when the time is right. I have that little meditation commentary. And I love to go and meet people, and even in meetings at work, in Zoom, you have a lot of time in Zoom, when you're not talking. If you don't make me talk, I can listen a little bit. So I try to practice. Oh, what's your specialty? It's a practice. We cannot just have a great idea and it will happen. We have to practice it. And for me, changing the way I think about people, I feel I've been unblocking. I was a loving person, but I feel I've come one step further in opening the heart and starting to be like those Daddy Yankee that we've always felt, oh, Daddy Yankee, Daddy Yankee. Well, when am I going to be like this? When am I going to become truly loving to people? And I find that if we don't give more love to this world, there's hate everywhere. There's fear, but it's anger, the rage. If you look at the news and you see the rage of people, for what? Killing each other. This is Canada here, and then we are supposed to be a peaceful country. And now we see terrorist attacks in mosques, in churches, in the streets, in the market. It's not getting better. So are we trying love as a medicine, or we just want a vaccine? I think that to me, if we don't come in a culture where we relearn to love each other properly, and I know it sounds a little bit corny sometimes, and sometimes we block our head because this is religion. It's not. It's just teaching in schools. Make two kids sit in front of each other. Learn to love somebody. It's not going to happen naturally. Learn to love your mother if you don't like her. Learn to love your neighbor. Practice. Find new games. Video games about loving each other will be, I think it should be a revolution instead of killing each other in the video games all the time. So I think love is, and I know it's not me who's saying it, it's been said before, love is the answer. I know maybe the Beatles had a song about it.
Love is the way, absolutely. And really what you're saying there is it's the quality of our being that we carry around with us in the world that ultimately is going to make a change, because that's where we begin. And we're going to move into a meditation in a moment, just to have a few moments of reflection on some of these themes that we've been discussing. But for you, Gayatri, do you see this as a very special time that we are going through now? And would you place your focus on the change of the individual and hoping that ripples out and affects the whole? Is that where we begin?
It's definitely a time of transition, and it is a time in which it's also calling on us for transformation. And for me, transformation is transformation. So it's you are changing a way of being that you're accustomed to being, a human doing, to becoming a human being. And the word to me is being. And being is not just a thought. Being is a way. It's a way of being from which a thought arises. And so I would say in this time of transition, understand that there are two things happening. One is, in a collective way, we are on a downward spiral. And in a collective way, we are also on an upward spiral. And the upward spiral is asking for a change in consciousness that is coming from a different reality, a reality of there is goodness in every human soul. Tap into that goodness, which I'm calling strength. And there is a reality that we have lost sight of that goodness, and there is a manifestation of our weaker side, the side that is full of anger and anxiety and fear and all of that. And that is taking us on a downward spiral. A transition is always a time of choice. And so what is the choice here? It's a choice point. Do I want to connect to the upward spiral, or do I want to connect to the downward spiral? Now, both of these spirals are a collective of human beings working toward a reality. One is a reality of transcendence and taking us on elevated and higher ground. And the other is one of degradation, is taking us into our lower self and into a lower ground, into the pits then, as we would say. So choose. A human being has the ability to choose. Do we have the courage that will give us the confidence at a time of transition to choose well for ourselves, as well for the whole of humanity? Because, you know, there is this profound understanding, whatever I do as an individual, it is having an impact on the collective. But it's the collective of my family, but it's the collective of my colleagues at work, but it's collective of my community. And if I could just have that self-respect, that whatever I do is having an impact on a collective, then I will choose to do what is best. And that choice will depend on my value system, of course. And so how is that value system molded and shaped? That is something that we have to look at and come to terms with.
I mean, you're talking there about choice and how we spend our time and what we do with it. Before we close, which we must do in a few moments, let's just choose to spend some time together in meditation, in bringing stillness and experiencing some of these shining principles that we've been talking about in our session today. Gayatri, if you could just lead us in our closing meditation. And as you speak, we're going to just show an image on the screen which represents this point of light, which we've been talking about today, the soul star, the soul light that is in the core of our being. And we can just close with a few moments of meditation. Gayatri, if you could lead us, that would be beautiful.
Sure. I invite us all to take a comfortable seat in the center of the forehead. This is the seat of the soul. The soul is a being of light, a light with tremendous strength. A light of spiritual life. let us pause as we sit on the seat of the soul. What happens after this pause? I find myself in a vast space, an inner space, a space that invites me to reflect. I'm reflecting on the quality of my thoughts. I'm reflecting on the feelings that are emerging from within this space that is so vast, this inner space. This inner space is of light. And I can enlarge this light as much as I like. I visualize myself in the vastness of this inner space of light. The vastness of this space allows me to transcend that which I cannot change. And it puts me into a domain of other possibilities. Possibilities that emerge out of this inner space of silence. This silence turns down the volume of the noise of the outside. It mutes the noise of the outside. The emergence of love from within the soul puts me into a space of awe. It gives me a meaning and a purpose to what true love can really do. A love that comes from my soul. A love that is generous and kind and compassionate. And the awe of it all, it is a love to care and share with others. This inner experience of moving into the vastness of light within connects me to the source. In this connection with the source, I feel the call, loud and clear. The call is a call to look for what is life-giving. It's a call to connect to others, recognizing that each human soul has worth. It's a call to be kind in little ways. It's a call to care. The soul can only transcend the challenges of the noise outside when it is stable and connected to the silence inside. It is from this silence that the soul finds the courage and the confidence to choose. As I emerge out of my silence and reconnect to a world so divided, let me choose to remain connected to my inner strength of unconditional love and undivided peace. Let me remain connected to a domain within that helps me transcend that which I cannot change, and let me connect to that which I can change. Let me live a life on the upward spiral of a transformation that is occurring at a time of transition. This is the choice that I must make. Om Shanti.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for leading us into that beautiful experience of silence. It really is a reminder of just how refreshing it is to immerse ourselves in that quality of silence. And the images that you have presented to us of choosing to commit to that upward spiral. So many images you have shared, absolutely beautiful. I think the word that I will take away from you, Gayatri, from today is the word awe, which you have used quite a lot. And it's really to find that in our life which generates a sense of awe and wonder, because there is so much in the world that we can have a profound experience and connection of awe if we choose to see it. So thank you, Gayatri, for that and for being with us today. And I think for you, Eric, it has to be the word love that I'm going to take from what you said, and to be love and to be that quality in the world is going to be the thing that makes the difference. And at the end of the day, what greater thing is there than to feel connected to that love and share that in the world? So thank you, both of you, so much for your really deep sharing. The ideas that you have given us to go away and think about certainly will keep me going for a long time. We've had a question, Eric, from someone wanting to know what is that picture of the lighthouse and the storm behind you, because they're really loving it. So maybe you can share with us and we can put it in the follow-up email that anyone who has been part of today's session will receive, with a list of emails and websites. And Gayatri will put the information about the book that I quoted from that you co-authored, Something Beyond Greatness. Maybe we can put that on as well. And if you were with us in the first session, we mentioned a book there as well about 7 steps of keeping calm, and we'll put a link to that book on that information sheet as well. So I hope you can make the time to be with us for our next session, which is going to be on the 3rd of December. Our topic is going to be Create Your Vision, Color Your World. We're looking at the power of intention, the power of holding a determined thought. And if you want to engage with the homework task for this next session, then the question is this: if there's one thing you could introduce into your life that would make a positive difference, that would change your life for the better, what would that one thing be? And what one thing could you start doing today that would move you closer to realizing that change? So that's your challenge. What one thing could you introduce into your life that would make a positive difference, change your life for the better? And what one thing could you do today that would move you a step closer towards realizing that change? So that's going to be on the 3rd of December. I hope you can join us then. Until then, keep well, keep safe, keep finding those moments when you can experience the stillness, the peace that is at the core of your being. Until then, from all of us, take care and goodbye.
Thank you so much, Philippa, Eric, and Gayatri, for delivering such a beautiful and meaningful program. Thank you, Hilal, for bringing such an amazing opportunity our way. And a huge thank you goes to a person who orchestrated the whole series for us, Margaret Barron, who also have been studying Raja Yoga meditation with Brahma Kumaris University for over 25 years. Thank you to all participants. We hope this program was worth of your time, and we are looking forward to seeing you again. Again, as Philippa said, on December 3rd, the session, Create Your Vision, Color Your World. Have a great day, evening, and night, everyone. Thank you.